Hi there, I'm Gideon Henderson. I'm speaking to you today as the Chief Scientific Advisor for the UK Government Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. But I'm also a research scientist by background, a research geochemist with a particular interest in ocean geochemistry. And I therefore very much appreciate the work of the Argo programme and delighted to be speaking today, both as a policy advisor and as a research scientist. I thought a great way into my opening remarks would be to step aside for a minute and show you my background, which are the tracks recorded by the Argo floats that I personally have released during a GeoTraces cruise in the South Atlantic. Now, the GeoTraces is an international program looking at ocean geochemistry, and that really gives me an appreciation of the benefits that we serve to get from the biogeochemistry Argo program. It also makes me aware, the involvement I've had with the GeoTraces program, of the tremendous challenge that comes from trying to stitch together efforts across many nations to deliver an international science program. And I particularly appreciate the efforts that all those on this meeting and the many others involved in Argo have put into making the program such a success and driving forward future plans for the biogeochemistry float program. Argos, of course, provide us critical information about temperature uptake into the ocean, driving the global response to climate change, both across the planet, but also the spatial pattern of that change. When we look at that spatial pattern, we start to understand the importance not only for climate, but for the weather system. And we also understand the complementary information that we get from Argos about that uptake of heat with the information that we get from Earth observation from satellite programs. Defra, as the UK department responsible for the Copernicus program, is delighted that the UK has been able to continue our association with that Copernicus program. Another example of nations coming together to deliver better scientific outcomes and better Earth observation outcomes than we'd get by working as a number of separate nation states. Now, Copernicus as a program is not only looking at temperature, but it's looking at carbon dioxide. I sometimes call the current climate change not climate change, but carbon change, because that's, of course, what we as a society are primarily changing. And understanding the carbon cycle is of critical importance to all of us on the planet. We know that nearly 30% of the carbon that we emit is absorbed by the ocean through inorganic solubility pump. And the Argo biogeochemical float program will contribute to our understanding and our ability to predict that uptake through at least one of the parameters that are measured, the pH parameter. Now, pH is only one of the parameters on the new float program, which will be useful to understand ocean ecosystem response. It's critical ocean acidification, of course, but other measurements such as light penetration, nitrate, and oxygen are also going to be of fundamental importance to understanding ecosystem health, ecosystem resilience, the biodiversity of the ocean, and understand and predict and manage our fisheries. So there's a great deal of value that comes from the biogeochemical float program of Argo. I'd like to move on and say a few words about the G7 appreciation of this and other ocean programs. This meeting is itself arranged under the auspices of the Future of the Seas and Ocean Initiative, a G7 initiative launched under the Japanese presidency of G7. I'd draw your attention to communiques released this year under the UK presidency, released on the 21st of May. And you can find these on the gov.uk website very readily. There is an important statement about the adoption of the G7 of a UN decade navigation plan, laying out firm commitment to the UN decade of ocean science for sustainable development. There's also a broader communique produced and agreed by climate and environment ministers, which is, I think, a tremendously exciting document. Really represents a bit of a step change in the appreciation of the importance of the environment from the G7 countries. It makes firm commitments towards net zero from all of those countries before 2050. And it really steps up to understanding and recognizing the dual challenges of climate and biodiversity for this planet and the need to respond. That exciting environmental ministers communique also has oceans built all the way through it and represented through it, including a separate section on ocean action, which talks about the agreed protection of 30% of the ocean by 2030, and again reiterates the commitment to the UN decade. The UN decade itself, of course, is not just about the G7 countries, but about all of the countries around the world and about the health of the oceans across the planet. The first International Ocean Decade Conference kicks off this week, recognizing and starting the conference more formally. I'm delighted that I'll be speaking at the launch event today, in fact, and that we'll be able to start to realize the ambition of that decade built around the idea of the science we need for the ocean we want. The ocean, of course, is a shared resource, and if the ocean is, so should oceanography be, and so should ocean science and ocean data. And Argo is a wonderful demonstration of the not only international countries coming together, but also international use of the data and the availability of the information that we get from that data. One UK contribution to the UN decade will be through the Blue Planet Fund. This is a UK Overseas Development Assistance Programme, a substantial programme, including a large amount of capacity building, and I would fully expect that Argo data and the use of that data will be an important component of that capacity building. Now finally, just a couple of quick remarks about the COP26 meeting, also under UK presidency this year. And we must remember, of course, with COP that it has three really important goals: to reduce emissions, to make sure we're ready, we're adapting, and to sort out climate finance. But in each of those fundamental goals of the UNFCCC process, the oceans play an important role, and we'll see oceans fed through the whole COP process. From a science point of view at COP, there will be a science pavilion, and we're planning a science and innovation day with a particular focus on science and innovation. And I'd like to close by pointing out what an innovative program, what an example Argo has been in that context. It has innovated and transformed the way that we observe the ocean, we understand the ocean through the traditional Argo program. And the biogeochemical float program has had to innovate to enable us to make these extremely challenging biogeochemical measurements from sensors in a routine way. And it's a tremendous example of the power of innovation through science to deliver better understanding of the planet. So thank you to all of you involved in the program, all of you at this meeting, for your tremendous efforts through the Argo program. It has a great support from, certainly from me personally, and from Defra in the UK.